Welcome back. Today we have a little bit of a special video today. We're going to be working on my car stereo in my 2004 PT Cruiser. In fact, I'm actually going to be removing it. A quick backstory about this car. I actually bought the car back in 2012, February 20th of 2012, and being that tomorrow is February 20th, 2016, basically you can get the idea. I've had the car for 2 years. In that 2 years, I've had more problems with this car than I've had in any other car in my entire life, which is sad to say. I have the original printout here from when I bought the car. You can see I got it for the price of $4,500. It had 118,000 miles on it. Now this is a 2004 Chrysler PT Cruiser Touring Edition, and this is actually my second PT Cruiser. Really quick story. I used to have a 2002 Mustang GT, had it with like double-digit miles on it, got it right from the dealership, loved the car, had it for a very long time, and some time ago I had an engine problem. It's a simple thing, just aftermarket part put on wrong, finally decided to go on me. I thought the car was done, so I parked it here in the driveway, went out and got myself a used car, which ended up being a 2006 PT Cruiser. Not terribly high in miles, you know, 20,000, 30,000. I really don't remember what it was, but the reason why I got it was because I had some credit problems. It was easy to get that car at the time. It was kind of just, you know, call the dealership, I needed a car. I showed up, they had it ready for me, went home with it. I've actually liked PT Cruisers. I thought they were pretty neat looking cars. So I had that for a while. Mustang sat here, and then one day I fixed the Mustang. It was a simple thing. I just put the money and time into it, and it was a lot easier to fix, and I still had the PT Cruiser, so I ended up getting rid of my wife's 96 Escort, which was actually her dad's car. And it was just, you know, kind of getting old, falling apart. Nothing wrong with it, just getting old, so she took the PT Cruiser. Now, they had some nice things like remote start in it. Not a factory remote start, but it still had remote start. And basically that was about it. Well, fast forward a couple years to 2012, and the Mustang died on me again. This time was a transmission issue. I had already replaced the transmission in it. Again, my stupidity. I went out and bought aftermarket kit basically, and had somebody do it. And it was a shift kit and ran great, but it was a lot of money, and I didn't feel like putting the kind of money into the car again, especially when it had 180,000 miles on it. So I decided time to get rid of the Mustang, and I went and bought another PT Cruiser. Now the original 2006 PT Cruiser I had a lot of problems. The computer ended up going bad on it, and had some minor things which ended up being major things, like the windshield wipers just went on automatically and stopped working. Not fun. And to come to find out that the newer vehicles had this CAN bus system where all the components of the car are connected to a computer system that you can, you know, plug into as a mechanic and test, and which is good for them, but as a home mechanic it doesn't work very well for me. I don't have one of those, you know, multi-thousand-dollar scan tools. So time to get rid of the PT Cruiser. But since I did like them, and I found one locally, this one down the road, I figured why not? And then I found out that in 2005 or whatever year it was, they decided to go to that CAN bus system, and the 2004 and earlier didn't have that. So it should be theoretically easier to work on. Well, I went and checked it out and said, oh, this is nice. It's a touring edition, has nice rims, it has sunroof, you know, things that my car didn't have before that. So I figured we'll get it. Took it for a test drive, you know, it was used but in pretty good shape, so I took the plunge and bought it and put, you know, like 500 bucks down or whatever I had on me, and ended up with the thing, and a couple days later sold the Mustang, used the money to pay for the car. The loan was, you know, pretty good. In fact, I just paid it off the other day because I actually need to get rid of this thing, and honestly I wish I never got the car. When I went to pick it up a couple days later, which was because the engine light was on, the used guy dealer couldn't get the light to go out, and just, you know, give it a couple days, we'll see if we can get it to go out. And turns out it was sensors, and I've had the thing die on me a couple times driving to a friend's house. Need to get the computer replaced a couple times. The first time I had to pay for it, the second time the dealership paid for it. I ended up taking to a Chrysler dealer because they said local mechanics aren't going to know how to fix these things. It was just a mess. But one of the things I did manage to do with it was take the sound system that I had in my Mustang out and put it into the PT Cruiser. And this particular PT Cruiser had an aftermarket radio on it, so it was kind of easy. Even little things like that, when I took the aftermarket radio out that somebody else put in, it wasn't put in very well. It had like electrical tape wrapped around the wires, it wasn't heat shrinked, it wasn't soldered, it wasn't anything at all like that. And that kind of let me know that this thing was a sketchy vehicle. And I put more money into the car than I cared to. And now at this point, here it is 2016, the inspection's due on it. It's not going to pass inspection. I've already had a problem with the thermostat. I've already had a problem with the sensor recently that I thought if I'd fix, I'd be able to, you know, get it to pass inspection. But now the engine light's not going out, even though I replaced those items, because it has an emissions problem, which is exactly what the other car had happen to it. So that's it. Get it out of my life and move on. With that being said, there's going to be another video coming up introducing the new vehicle that I'm getting, which I'm very excited about, but I'm not going to ruin the surprise and mention it now. So with that, I'm going to take this camera outside. We're going to do a quick walk around the video, the car, just to show you what's going on with it. And then we're going to get into removing the car stereo. Okay, here's a quick walk around about this thing. One of the things I noticed when I picked this car up is the little hubcap covers that, you know, basically went over the front of these lug nuts here. Two of them were missing, but when I went back and looked at the pictures of the car after I brought it home from the dealer, they weren't missing. So when they did whatever they did to the car, they lost them, and I called the dealer out on it, and he never ended up replacing it on it. In fact, there were a couple things on this thing when I originally picked it up that I pointed out, like the power mirrors weren't working because the switch was shot. The fog light switch was shot, you know, the dashboard lights were half out on it, and he didn't want to budge in the price because he said he already reduced it $1,000. I don't want to go ahead and start bashing the dealer because that's not what I'm all about, but all I can tell you is if you're in the New Windsor area here in New York, and there's a certain car dealership here on Route 207 near Stewart Airport that I suggest not going to. But I'm not here to bash them, that's not what I'm about. So I'm not going to mention their name. You can see it's got the classic faded out headlights from years of use. I did paint the grille black with some of that Plastidip, and I also did the logo just for fun, just for something to see how it would come out. And it came out all right. You can see there's those missing hubcaps. The new car won't have stickers like this, which are actually just magnetic stickers. It's going to have vinyl decals. Also went ahead and did the gas cap here with the same Plastidip. And yes, my taillights held in by duct tape. Now these are actually the taillights off of the 2006 PT Cruiser because they had the clear turn signals, whereas this car originally had red turn signals. Just something that I decided to switch. And you can see here's also the same rear, you know, logo done with the Plastidip. Now I'm going to go ahead and open this up and show you. Well, first of all, the shocks aren't that great, but I have removed the rear seats, and I've actually had them out of this car the whole time I've had it, and I've also taken them out of the other car the whole time I had that because, well, it's only my wife and I need the space for cargo, which, you know, not for nothing, but you do get a pretty good amount of space in there. And you can see here's one of the pieces I added, which is the 10-inch subwoofer. I originally got that at Walmart in the box with its own sub, and then the sub that you see in it now came separately again from Walmart, which was better than what I had in the original box. It's just a Jensen sub, you know, with a big surround on it. I don't have the model number or anything on it, but it does thump pretty hard. I do like a variety of different kinds of music, so I find that, you know, having something like that works well. Thing to point out in this car, the rear speakers are here in the pillars, whereas on the 2006 PT Cruiser they are down in the doors, which I don't really like. But in the back up here, they're great. The only thing is when you're outside the car, you can hear it, you know, because they're up here basically. It did not come with the jack stand cover, but this one, unlike the other one, has the 12-volt outlet in the back, which was great. We'll go ahead and open up the side door here, and I'll show you. On the floor there is a 12-disc MP3 CD changer, which I ended up buying on eBay after I got this vehicle. I did not have that in the Mustang, unfortunately. You can see down on the floor here, and I've already removed the rear floor mats to make this video a little easier, but that's the power cable coming into the vehicle from the battery to a distribution block. And it's, you know, this isn't like $1,000 sound system. I've actually had this for quite a while, and it works well, but I don't need to, you know, blow the doors off of the car. And we'll get into the vehicle here. And you can see my Jensen, I'm sorry, my JVC stereo system. This is the KD-L8300, or I should say LH300 radio. You know, it's MP3 WMA compatible. However, the CD changer in the back does not play WMA CDs, and that's something I found out after the fact. Actually, inside here there is a RF modulator, so I could hook up a line input, but I never finished the job. I was actually going to put a switch right here to turn it on and off, and then the auxiliary input over here. And all I did was this radio. There's 2 amps underneath each seat here, and then the sub and the rear speakers. The front speakers are stock and they run off the head unit. The rear speakers run off the 110 watt amplifier under my seat, and then the subwoofer runs off a 200 watt amp under the passenger seat. Now I know, again, those aren't big numbers. You know, you hear people have 1,000 watt sub and this and that. Trust me, this thing is plenty loud. I don't need to kill my hearing. And you know, what really do you need all that power for anyway? It's not like I'm entering this thing into a competition. All the wires basically run underneath the center console here, with the exception of the power cables, which run under this side. And I think I have some cables going down the other side too as well. So to get this thing out, we're going to have to remove the center console here by taking out these knobs and pulling the faceplate right out. And a couple other things will have to happen, like just get the mats out of the way, and I'm gonna have to pry some of these panels up. I'm gonna try my best to show as much of this as possible. I could bring my big tripod out here. I'm actually just gonna get my little tripod and set it on the chair here next to me and just kind of get a general shot, and I'll just move it around as I go piece to piece. The last time I actually put this system in was right after I got the car, actually. The funny thing about it is I took the original radio that was in here, which was again an aftermarket radio, and I put that in the Mustang so it had something to it. And then I don't have the original radio that was in this that came with the car. I think it may be a cassette deck or cassette CD combination, I'm not really sure, but whoever had it before me put an aftermarket kind of cheapy radio in. And I'm not spending any money on this thing. I'm not putting another radio in it, other than I think I have one out in my shed that somebody gave me. It was just a random box of car parts, and I think there's an old Alpine radio in there. If I have that, I'm going to put it in here. If not, oh well, this thing's getting traded into the dealer. I'm probably going to get 500 bucks for it tops, and they're probably just going to junk the thing anyway, so who really cares, honestly. Like I said, the engine light's on it. It's not going to go out. It's got an emissions problem. So with that, I'm going to actually run back inside because I didn't bring my little tripod out with me, and I'm going to grab a Phillips screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, maybe a pair of pliers. Honestly, there's really not a whole lot you need to put this thing together and take it apart, so I'm going to go do that and I'll be right with you. Alright, so like I said, I'm going to start by taking these knobs out. They just kind of pop right out of place. Last time I did this, it was dark out and it was cold. I was kind of hating life, but I wanted to get it in. This thing doesn't have any screws in it, but you kind of just pop it like that. Comes out pretty easily. Oh yeah, this piece has to pop off here. And there is one screw up on top. I'm actually gonna use my Leatherman Surge here just to show you kind of how easy this is. Most likely, unless I can't get in there with it. I'm pretty sure I can actually do this whole job with just this one tool. And then there's a plug on the back here. Now, one of the things about this car that I've heard a lot of people say is that there's a problem, major problem with them actually, is the wiring harnesses is too short. So a lot of the electrical problems people have with it is simply because Chrysler was too cheap and they didn't put enough wire into the thing. And there's this little retention clip here that just gets popped, and you can just push this in and pop it out like that. There's your whole switch assembly for your windows, your mirrors, yeah, the windows. And then this center console comes right out. I'll just get that out the way over here. Now all these little lights in here, and all of them in here I had to replace because half this dash wouldn't light up. Which, hey, what do you expect for a car this old? But at the same token, what dealer doesn't make sure that works before they sell the car, especially at the price they asked for it. I'll admit I got hosed on this thing, so it's my own stupid fault. I knew what I was getting into, but that's not going to happen. In fact, when we got rid of the red 06 PT Cruiser, we went and got ourselves a certified pre-owned vehicle, which, you know, came with a bumper-to-bumper warranty for, oh God, I don't even remember how many miles, thousands of miles. I almost want to say it was good to up to 100,000 miles. It was a Honda Civic, 2014. I forget what year it is now, honestly. My wife's car. I don't even really get to drive it. It's her car. She takes it back and forth to work. We go out on the weekends in it, and that's her baby. She loves that thing. But yeah, I just took the 4 screws out of here. This comes right out. I actually have to pop this front bezel off, which comes right out. And there is one tool I need to actually get out the shed, which is the release tool. I might actually be able to do it without it, but normally they slide into the front here and you can pull the radio right out. But it looks like I could just maybe grab the corners here and just pop this right out, hopefully. It's going to come out from the front. Yeah, there we go. And we'll take the wires out. Now this is the RCA cable here that gets disconnected, which goes to the amp under the seat. The next one here is going to be our antenna, which is this wire right here. The green RCA cables here goes down to the sub. We'll pop them out. And then we have this big wire here, which is the controller cable for the CD changer. And then the last one is the harness. And this is the main harness that goes right to the whole system. Oh, I should mention I've already taken the CD out of this thing before I even started doing this. This one just has a clip in the back, which is kind of fighting me at the moment. It just has to get pushed in and wiggled out. And then the rest of this goes to a couple different places. I actually have LED lights that I put under the seats. I can unclip this from the back of the radio so I can get that right out the way. And we'll just show you a quick shot of the back here. So this is your front and rear line out, and this is the sub out like I mentioned. You can hook up either a line in or CD changer or Sirius radio to this piece here. And then this is obviously your main connector with the 15-inch fuse, and this is your, you know, antenna adapter. And this whole thing is going to just slide right out of this piece here. And that's the whole radio liberated. And I've already taken the front face off too, which actually looks like it might have even fell off when I took this out. But that's all she wrote. JVC KD-LH300. Unfortunately, I will not be putting this in the new car because the new vehicle has a very large entertainment system in it, like most of the newer vehicles on the road today, and you really don't want to go mess with it. Same thing with the wife's car. It's got this whole big radio here and screen up on top that displays everything. You can't really mess with it. I mean, you could put like an external amplifier, change the speakers in it, but that's about it. And this is just, you know, this came with the car because, again, it had an aftermarket radio in it already. So at some point, I'm going to have to fold all these metal pieces down just to free up this bracket. And then hopefully the replacement radio has that same bracket in it. If not, hey, like I said, I'm not really worried about not putting something in this. I can listen to silence back and forth to work in the meantime until I get the new one. Now this is the harness that I made up. I took the clip that the radio in this came with and went ahead and soldered and heat shrinked everything, which is the proper way to do it. And I also put some zip ties on it. So this is what I consider a really well-made harness. Now there was some afterthought to this where I tapped into this thing to hook up the RF modulator and the LED lights because I wanted to get power from here. And that's actually over here in the glove box. It's just the positive and negative leads and then the red, green, blue wires that go down to the LED lights. And there was a controller hooked into here that you would open this glove box up, switch the internal switches to whatever color you wanted the lights to turn on to, and then there was going to be a switch mounted under here. But like I said, I never did that because shortly after I had this car and I did all this work to it, I started having problems with it and I just said to hell with it. So I'm going to have to actually reach down in here now and find where that RF modulator unit is and get that out. I might have to remove some more of this dash to do that, which would just be taking out the screws and pulling this out and fish some of the wires out. What I'm going to do is actually pause the video right now and just kind of dig at this a little bit and pull this stuff through. That's kind of a boring piece to watch, and when I get that done, I'll be right there. Here's the rest of everything out. Now this is the Audiovox FM modulator that I had installed in line with the antenna. This connector here went to a switch that when you turn it on, it would turn this on and cut either 89.1 or 88.7 FM off on the radio, and then allow you to hook up these RCA connectors here to whatever device you wanted, and it would play through the radio. This was just a solution that I used in the Mustang, so I transferred it over to this car and never really ended up using it. But the other wire here is this blue wire. This is the remote turn-on circuit for the amplifiers. So when I turn on the car stereo, the amplifiers turn on with it. And that's kind of all she wrote with this. Now, one thing I forgot about was whoever did this original aftermarket install here, I should say, cut the antenna wire and just bodged the wires together and jammed it into the back of the radio, which was stupid because it didn't need any kind of an adapter. So I actually had to take the end and used a proper splice connector, which you probably won't see on the camera that well, but it's this black, splice connector, and that's just to, keep the interference out. But of course, before that, the radio reception sucked, and well, it just goes to show you, you got to be careful who you hire to do your car stereo stuff, because you can get people who do really crappy jobs doing this. And I'm sure the guy did it himself, because if he paid somebody to do what they did to this thing, he got ripped off. But then again, with the way this car was the whole time I've had it, I'm not really surprised this thing was not in the best of shape. So I'm not going to really do much with this harness right now. So I'm just going to kind of neatly put it off to the side. I am, however, going to cut this blue wire here as close to this splice connector as I can, because we're not going to need it right now. In fact, we have to pull it through the radio, through the dash here. So I'm just going to lay this right in the back seat, get it right out the way. And here's those blue, red, white, blue, or red, green, blue, black wires that go to the LED lights. You can see one goes this way, the other goes that way. So I have to pull them through. And I also have to pull the RCA cables out and bring them to where they belong. And for this, I'm going to have to, open the car doors and get out the car. And I'm going to go ahead and just pop this off the tripod real quick here and show you what's involved in that. Now, these sill plates have to come out. They just pop right off. It's just a matter of prying them out of their, connectors in the bottom. And, well, basically the wire runs along here underneath this plate, and then it goes under the car seat, and you can kind of see the wires there. Now, I've moved these wires around a bit since I've actually put the system in originally. They were kind of bundled neatly. Nice thing about this car was that there was actually a little plate right here, a little plastic plate that covered over this. So it was pretty easy to work with. I also should mention the original car this was in, the amplifiers were mounted on the backs of the seats, the rear seat. So when you folded them down, you could just, get to them. But this car, since I don't have back seats in it and I didn't want to take up the cargo space, you could see, here's the amps under the seat. A little light on here. You can see where the RCA wire goes in. It's a bit dusty down here, but they're just screwed in the front with the two screws, and then they kind of go into the back there, and you can see all the speaker connectors. So I'm going to go ahead and once again pause the video to save you the boring bits and take those sill plates off all four doors, because you can see the wire has to go through this panel here and then go out the back through this whole thing up into there where those are, and those are going to have to get pulled off too. So it's just a matter of pulling them off. There's no screws or anything like that, just a couple snaps, nothing spectacular. And then the CD changer that sits on the floor there, which I'll take a quick walk around and show you, isn't actually bolted down because I didn't really know where to put it. It was originally on top of the sub, but it, you know, subwoofers vibrate, and even though this thing has anti-shock in it, it doesn't really work that well. So it kept skipping my CDs, so I ended up just leaving it on the floor here and just left the extra wire bundled up. And you can see here's the back of the amplifier. So I'll need to just take those screws out and slide this forward. I could disconnect all those wires. I should also show you under the hood, which I had to tap on to get the 8-gauge wire back here. I'll have to disconnect that because 8-gauge wire carries a lot of current, and I don't want to have to, you know, get shocked or, you know, fry my battery or anything like that. That wouldn't be a good idea. So we're going to disconnect that whole thing too. And here's the kind of messy engine compartment. And you can see the wire just comes from the bulkhead here and then goes underneath the air filter. And this air filter is kind of hokey. It only has one clip on it. And this will lift up and you can see. Now this battery corrodes like a son of a gun. I've cleaned this thing actually last weekend, and you can see how much it corroded that quickly. I'm not sure why it's doing this, but I'm gonna have to clean all that off too, neutralize that with some baking soda solution, or just scrub it off with a brush. Have to get to that and clean that off, but it's just gonna be a matter of undoing that nut. And this piece right here is the barrel connector that the wire is connected into. So once I undo that nut, I can just pull this connector right off and that'll disconnect the sound system. So I'm gonna go ahead and get dirty and do that. Take the sill plates off, and I'm gonna come right back to you. Okay, got the power cable disconnected from the battery. In fact, I've completely disconnected the battery altogether. I actually have one of these battery terminal cleaners, which is a two-sided jammy. That's for the battery, this is for the terminal. And I went ahead and cleaned that thing up really nicely, as best as I could. I'm gonna not put as much effort into this thing as I can, just minimal, because again, I'm getting rid of it. Hopefully this week. If not, you know, by the end of the month. And just got to pull this wire through. I did the 3 sill plates. I didn't get to this one yet, but I have to pop that one off. The wire goes underneath it. You can see over here the 2 speaker cables which go underneath. I pulled off the covers here. You can see there's the original Pioneer speakers I put in. I do have to dig the other speakers out of my closet there, or my shed I should say. And the other wire actually goes up and along here and then goes down that pillar to that speaker. I didn't bother going the long way, so that means I don't need to take this pillar, this sill plate I should say, out. I did do the one on the passenger side of the car, and all the wires have to get pulled out now. It's probably worth mentioning how I did the ground cables here. You can kind of see the loop right there. I just sanded down a section and drilled in this screw. It was actually a self-tapping screw, and just connected the ground wire right to the rail of the chair, and that worked pretty well. And then if you follow it under, there's the big fuse. I think it's a, I don't know, 30 amp, 50 amp. I have to look at it when we pull it out. A big fuse connects that 8-gauge wire to that distribution block, and then it splits off to the 2 amps, and all the wires basically just go into that center console there. And there's that remote turn-on wire. So the next step in this process is going to be to take the screws out from the seats. I have to actually push the seats back, and once we get those screws out, I can push the amplifiers towards the back seat, and then we can access the screws to disconnect the wires. And now we can get a closer look at these amplifiers. And you can see here, it's just the black wire is your ground, red wire is your positive, blue wire is your remote, as I've mentioned many times already. And then these are the speaker cable connections that go to the back speakers. And if I switch over to the other amp, you can see the same thing. Now on this amp, it's bridged mono. So instead of pumping 100 watts per channel, it's pumping 200 watts into one channel. And that's 200 watts RMS. And I actually modified this speaker by taking 2 8-gauge wires and soldering them directly to the terminals of the speaker. So if I turn this around here, you can see the wires don't connect to the plate in the back. They actually go straight through. They were drilled out and it goes straight through the speaker inside. I did this quite a while ago. In fact, actually, the one thing I did recently do is you can see there's some of that red, green, blue, black wire going in there. I've actually added a strip of LED light to the inside of the speaker box. So the speaker box lights the same color as the lights under the seats do. The new vehicle I'm getting has the option for that kind of mood lighting. However, being the DIY guy I am, I'm probably going to do that myself and just put a couple strips maybe under the front and under the seats. Not 100% sure because, well, it's going to be a work vehicle, not a personal vehicle like this one is. I mean, this is getting me back and forth to work every day, and it's also getting me to, you know, I could put tools in it and stuff. But the new one is going to be more of exclusively a work vehicle. I mean, it's still going to get me back and forth to my regular job, but ultimately, I'm going to be doing this repair stuff for a living. So I need a vehicle that's going to sustain that. And since I'm in the market for a vehicle now, well, you get the idea. So next step is going to be disconnecting all these wires and getting the amps out of place. I've already disconnected the CD changer, which was just a matter of unplugging the wire, so that wire can get pulled. And I also pulled the remaining sill plate by the driver's side door that I didn't get to. The only thing I might have to do is pull the corner pieces, which I can't get to right now, but under the front driver and front passenger side, just to get the wires up and underneath the dash. So when I get up to that, I'll get to show you that. But for now, we're going to go ahead and disconnect these wires. And there's the amps removed. Obviously the CD changer, and I'm starting to make a pile of all the wiring. The next thing to do would be to take out these rear speakers, which are just as simple as removing 4 screws and then disconnecting the wires from the back of them. I'm going to do that on both sides here, and while I'm at it, I'm also going to pull the wire through, and they should just pull through. Now, fortunately, I didn't have to remove that whole plastic piece when I put them in. I actually just used a wire snake and just snaked them through. So they should just pull right through, and then they'll be pulled out through here. In fact, I can probably pull them from the seat out towards that opening right there, and that'll do. And I'm also going to have to use an Allen wrench set, or an Allen key set, whatever you want to call it, to undo that terminal block there and take the wires out of it. So that'll allow me to pull the power cable through, and also the remote, you know, connect wire. And then on the other side here, which I'll take and actually show you this time, you can see the RCA cable. Mind my mic cable, but you can see the RCA cable kind of just comes through here, as does the signal cable for the CD changer. And these plastic plates here in the corner might have to come out too, because you have to get up into here. In fact, you can see this is the excess wire. Now, when I put this together originally, as you can probably see from the Radio Shack name on the amplifiers back there, I got a lot of this from the shack, partly because I worked there and partly because I didn't find the necessary need to buy expensive stuff. So these are gold, you know, heavy gauge gold-plated cables anyway. They were just long. The Mustang had even though it was shorter than this car, that wire had to be fished through a lot longer. And don't forget, the amps were mounted in the back seat, so I found the need to have a longer wire. But this car, I had to bundle it all up. But I can go ahead and start pulling all this stuff out too. The rest of this is going to go by pretty quickly. It's just a matter of pulling wires. The driver's side is going to be a little bit more of a nuisance, because that power cable goes up under the dash, and I have to actually, you know, lay on the seat and get my hand up underneath the dash to get to it. But it's just going to get pulled through. It's pretty easy once you get to it. All right, we're making some significant headway on at least one side of the vehicle here. I can take a walk around here and show you. On this particular side, I have to pull the RCA cable out, as well as the wires for the LED lights. Now, unfortunately, the LED strips aren't coming off that easily under the seats. In fact, they're quite brittle. And, well, you can see from the strip that just flew out my hands of the back seat. This is what it looks like now. It's kind of shot. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to put any effort really into salvaging them. I kind of had a feeling that's what would have happened. They've been up there for a while. Like the 2 years I've had the car, and from the heat and the cold cycles back and forth between the different seasons, they just became really brittle, as do these pieces usually do. I also went ahead and disconnected the bungee cord to the speaker box. That can just get pulled right out of the car. That was actually just held in with, you know, bungee, like I said, to the two pieces here. I pulled all the wire out from under the seat. This is the last wire remaining, which is again for the LED system. Not a big deal. Speakers are removed, like I said before. I forgot to mention that those speakers are actually soldered to the wires, so I just coiled up the wires to the magnet, as you can see there. And my little piles growing of cable. The easiest wire to pull out was the remote turn-on cable, which I actually did put up to the center console. And you can see there's no more wires running along, so I can actually start snapping some of these panels back into place. This side, however, when they built the car, they made this wire loom, which is just this piece of plastic that's snapped in the side, and it has like electrical tape wrapped around it. And I just fished the power cable right through. I also had to remove that corner piece there, which is sitting on the ground out here. You can see it there. It just pops straight out. But I went ahead and removed that, and the wire, the red wire, you can see goes up under the dash. So I'm just going to fish that out, and you know, just pull the rest of these through, and that last remaining RCA cable can get pulled through too. One more piece to the puzzle was pulling down this kick plate panel or knee panel, which is just hinged. It just literally pops straight down, and you can access inside the dash here. This was actually how I got into the hole originally, from where the wire came through. In fact, maybe you could see the light coming through that hole if I get the camera in the right spot. Yeah, that light back there was where the power cable came through, and believe it or not, that hole was actually there already, with no grommet or anything in it. It just sat like that. I'm sure there was a grommet there at one point, but it had popped out. And then in here I have this zip tie. You can just undo, and that's the rest of the wire. Now the way I did this was, I measured out the length for the LED light of the wire that I needed. I attached the light under the seat, and then I ran the wire up to this point, and you can see I just crimped it in. It was just easier to do it that way. I'm not a fan of these crimps. I try not to use them. I'd rather solder and heat shrink it, like I mentioned a lot. But that's what I had to do, because you know, I didn't have any connectors. I couldn't put a connector on the end of this and put it on the end of the strip. But you can see that wire comes through here and just pulls through. And then same thing for the other side. And I might have to get behind that. Yeah, there's something pulling on this, so I might have to get into that glove box, which is just a couple clips, and that thing pulls out too. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the signal cable. Now, a lot of places this was zip tied in place. Like right now, I have some resistance on it, so there might be a zip tie in there. So I'll have to get my hand in there and feel. But that, you know, pretty much is going to do it for the wiring on this side. Once I get them pulled through, and I can just start snapping this side of the car back together at least. On the passenger side of the vehicle here, as you can see, I folded down the glove box. These little tabs had to be pushed in. It wasn't the easiest thing to do, but they do come out. And you can see the wire, the black wire there, that runs up into the center console, and the RCA cable just right below with that knot, that little plastic knot in it to keep the wires from splitting. That's got to get pulled down here, which I've removed the corner plate. I've already gone ahead and buttoned up the driver's side of the vehicle, because that's all done now. And the last LED wire harness has been pulled out as well. And I can go ahead and disconnect that. Now, the way this side of the car worked, the wire went to the strip, and then the other side of the strip went out to the speaker box. And that was, pretty simple. And then the two wires connected inside the glove box to the controller board, which was just a simple board with a couple switches on it. But that's all obviously removed now. And once I get this out, I can go ahead and start closing up this side of the car. Then the only thing that's going to be left to do would be to hook up the actual, you know, either replacement radio or nothing at all, and I'll just put the dash back together. And I will put the rear speakers back in once I find out where I put them, which is going to be, again, someplace back in my shed, which is going to be a fun task to get through anyway, because I haven't really been out there much this winter. In fact, today it's 20, almost 30 degrees out here, so it's quite cold out. It hasn't been cold as it's been, but you can guess from being out here all day, I'm kind of getting pretty done with this project already. Well, for now, I'm going to leave the project as it is. I got everything put back together as far as the sill plates go. The dash is all put back together. If I pan around over here, you could see we got the center console put back in the car. I'm going to go ahead and put the screw in, put the switch back in place, put all the knobs in for the heat controls. But the actual radio itself is going to be left out of the car until I can get back to the shed and figure it out. Now, today's Friday. I'm off of work today because I have to work tomorrow. I intend to get off of work and finish this up. Hopefully I'll have that dug out, the rear speakers and the radio I want to put in its place. And once I get that pretty, done, I can pretty much call this a complete project. The radio I have to replace this with, I'm not sure if it works, so I do have to do some preliminary testing on that. So that's all going to be, subjects of another video. The only thing I have left to do today is to reconnect the battery, close the hood up, make sure all that's, tidied up. Like I said, can continue putting this together. I'm just going to quickly pan around the back here and show you. I moved the subwoofer to the back. I have a pile of the speakers and the wiring kind of just sitting there for now. I had to figure out what I'm doing with this. And then I also have the amplifiers, the head unit, and the CD changer. Unfortunately, I didn't take the magazine out of the CD changer, so I'm going to have to go ahead and do that. Mind the pausing here because I just saw the vehicle that I'm intending to buy drive by. It's pretty sharp looking in my opinion, and I'm really excited to get it. I just don't want to tell you guys what it is yet because that would ruin the surprise, but I'll have a full walkthrough once I do actually get it in my hands, which hopefully, like I said, should be sometime this coming week or next week. I'm not really sure when I'm going to get my hands on it, but I will have it hopefully soon. And yeah, that's all pretty much I'm going to have to say about this video. I will go ahead and get the rear seats put back in here, so that's done and taken care of. I may end up using some of this stuff in my shed, believe it or not. I actually have a speaker box that was originally used in Radio Shack to sample car stereos. It had 2 radios with 2 speakers mounted in it. And I've had it in there for a while. In fact, I went and bought speakers for it and a little like tabletop car stereo style MP3 player radio amplifier thing from Lepi, and I kind of modified the box to fit that thing. But I may end up putting that car radio in there if I don't sell it. I mean, ultimately it doesn't really do me much good, so maybe I will sell it. We'll see. I have to figure out what to do with that. But anyway, I'm going to sign off now. I want to thank you for watching my videos. The last I looked, I was actually close to 40 subscribers, which is getting closer and closer to that 100 goal mark for the year 2016. So I'm pretty excited to get there. I can say I'm almost halfway to that goal, which is great. It seems like I pick up a couple subscribers every video. So if you really want to see this channel grow, I'd appreciate it if you click thumbs up at the bottom there, leave a comment, and especially leave a subscription to my channel. Clicking that button really means a lot to me. And as always, thanks for watching my videos. We'll see you next time.